I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of a dogfight battle between two Motorola QWERTY keyboard devices, the PHOTON Q4G LTE and the DROID 4. Let's take a look, but first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like these and like a bunch of others for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. We're actually giving away an HTC One X right now. Let's take a look at it at PhoneDog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your widgets, your settings. When you walk in and you want to buy one of these, they'll help you set everything up at Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. It's Motorola versus Motorola. Which one's going to win in this crazy QWERTY battle? You're going to have to find out. It's part 2, and it starts right now. So we carry over into part 2 of this device, and as you can see, there are some slight differences between the two. You're looking at the Motorola design that's new, a new look and feel in the exterior of the device, the PHOTON Q4G LTE, but then you're also looking at a new look and feel when it comes to software. So both of these have been updated. This one obviously rolled out with Ice Cream Sandwich. This one was updated from Gingerbread to Ice Cream Sandwich. So the UI overall looks really similar. For example, you can see with the notifications bar, very similar on both fronts with the exception of the network IDs being different. Obviously, where you see some differences, little things, like Motorola is notorious for this. Remember back to like the Droid Razor and the Photon on Sprint, like minor differences between the two devices, depending on whether it's Sprint or Verizon or AT&T. They historically have done that, but I do like this feature, for example, where I can click on the text bar and I can expand it and then I can contract it as I see fit. You see those little arrows right beside each icon. That allows me to expand and contract so I can see activity with my phone, with email, with browser, for example. And you can see little bookmarks, like I have a little PhoneDog bookmark right there. Then I can go to text and do the same thing. And also the folders have a very stock look and feel here, as you can see down in the bottom. It looks very similar versus something like an HTC with a Sense 3.6 where it kind of groups the icons, you'll notice, in like a series of 4. A little bit different look and feel, but this definitely preserves a stock Android feel, which is different from Motorola, you know, and I have a feeling it has to do with the Google acquisition. That said, Motorola historically has not been the most open, as you know, when it comes to this kind of stuff. You know, they're used to doing Moto Blur. You know, they're used to being pretty intrusive when it comes to stock Androids. I think it's going to be kind of a turnaround for people that are like, I hate Motorola because they don't preserve Android and its true look and feel. And now it's like, wait a second, this is probably the most stock looking UI on the market, outside of obviously the Nexus series with stock versions of Android. That said, let's take a look at speed test on both of these devices. Now, both are 4G LTE devices. That said, Photon, still on 3G in the Charlotte metro area. Verizon's 4G LTE, huge rollout. It's been available since December of 2010. It's rolled out to over 370 cities, and their 4G LTE is relatively fast across the board. Over here, Sprint's 3G in non-network vision markets is absolutely abysmal. So if you're in a market and you know your 3G is bad, I'd say take advantage of the trial period to make sure you can handle the 3G. If you're in an area where network vision has been rolled out, my understanding is it's pretty decent. You're getting pretty decent speeds, and then of course their LTE has performed relatively well thus far as well. So with that said, 3G, absolutely terrible. Watch me get a decent result, but I average anywhere from like 0.006 to like 0.01 or 0.012 megabits per second over on the Photon. It's not impressive by any means. So keep that in mind if you're in a 3G only market, because these do not have WiMAX support. So you're going to be stuck if you're in a market, you know, that has 3G, you have WiMAX, but you can't take advantage of WiMAX on the Photon Q4G LTE. Over here on Verizon, LTE moving pretty quickly, 11.67 megabits per second. The upload, you're getting about 4 megabits per second, which is great considering my office is historically pretty terrible for coverage. I'm not sure what goes on in this office. I've had Verizon engineers come in. I've had several different people come in with network tools, network testing tools, and it hasn't been impressive. This is one of the more impressive speeds I've seen on Sprint, though. 0.05 megabits per second, so about 500 kilobits per second on 3G, and then the upload looks to be a little bit slower. Very impressive on the Verizon side here with 11 megabits per second. They claim anywhere from 5 to 12 megabits per second in saturated markets with an upload speed average of 2 to 5 megabits per second. So that's some stuff to keep in mind if you're looking at Verizon. Over here, 0.5 megabits per second. It looks like it's frozen up on the upload. Like I said, Sprint's 3G really struggling, but this is a pretty decent speed considering what I usually see from Sprint 3G devices. That's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Now, network vision is rolling out cell site by cell site, so it's possible that, you know, maybe my office cell site or the one near my office got upgraded at some point in the past couple of weeks. That's very possible. I'll have to take a look at that. Now, quadrant standard on both of these devices, and it's going to be interesting because, of course, take quadrant standard with a grain of salt. It's not indicative of true day-to-day performance. That said, Been very impressed with the Photon Q 4G LTE on this front. Take a look at the fingerprints. Maybe I just have greasy fingers. That's very possible. But fingerprint magnets on both devices, more so on the Photon Q. But dual-core 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon S4 CPU over here. 1.2 gigahertz dual-core TI OMAP processor. So obviously the Photon Q, unless it's just a weird fluke, the Photon Q is going to come out with a higher score. That said, both perform pretty well in web browsing and day-to-day performance. It's not hugely noticeable. I do notice a speed boost, though, from this one. I mean, I'm telling you, most of the reviewers in the industry did not like the Snapdragon S3 processor. I don't want to speak for everybody, but quite a few people voiced discontent with the Snapdragon S3. It was slow, it was laggy, it had issues. Processor that you see in something like the Samsung Galaxy Note. Over here, upgraded the Snapdragon S4. Huge improvement across the board. Very, very fast. With little to no lag in anything that I could throw at it. So I've been impressed. Call quality has been very good on both of these devices. Motorola does a great job with wireless radios. And another thing they do really well with, for my deaf ears, nice loud earpieces. And both of these are very easy to hear out of with great speakerphones. So that's something to keep in mind also. Now, while we're doing this, I'll show you in the back what they look like so you can see the difference between the two devices. No logos on the back, but you can see 1,785. Well, you can't see it because it's non-removable and it's embedded, but 1,785 milliamp hour batteries in both of these devices. So I did not mean to cancel out quadrant standard. We're going to have to run that again over here. And then we'll look at the Motorola Droid 4. So Droid 4 speed looks to be about 2,446. So 2,446 over here. Battery life in both of these devices, it's give or take, honestly. Like, 1,785 milliamp hours is non-removable, and it's going to depend on whether you're in a 4G or a 3G market. Obviously, 3G markets are a little bit harder to find with Verizon now because 4G has rolled out. That said, on the Droid 4, I get about 7 to 9 hours with moderate use, and it always depends on your definition of moderate use. To me, moderate use, downloading a few applications, browsing the web, making some phone calls, sending some text messages, 7 to 9 hours. Keep a charger around with both of these devices, both in the office, and if you're a road warrior, keep one for the car charger as well, because unfortunately you can't just swap the battery out when it dies. You got to keep it charged or else. Over here, I'd say I get, because I'm on 3G, I get about 8 to 10 hours with moderate use. I expect it to be a little bit less when 4G LTE rolls out on Sprint. Another thing to keep in mind on the design elements here, you've got very similar design themes with your micro USB charging ports on both sides and your HDMI ports. Power buttons up top with 3.5mm headphone jacks. And then over here, your volume rockers, but then on the Photon Q 4G LTE, you get a physical camera button. And I'm convinced they keep those physical camera buttons because they know how much I love them. Over here, though, you get a micro SD card slot. And the micro SD card slot on this device is actually located behind this little flap, which looks like a battery cover, but still the battery is actually embedded. So keep that in mind. 4,365 on quadrant standard on the Photon Q 4G LTE. So battery's embedded on both, but you got micro SD card slots. That said, the Verizon one over here, there's a SIM card slot. It takes a SIM card for their 4G LTE. The SIM cards are embedded in Sprint devices, so you do not have to use a Sprint. You don't have to go like to the Sprint store and get a SIM card. They come embedded in the actual unit themselves. So you may love it, you may hate it, but that's how Sprint decided to roll. So that is their prerogative. 8 megapixel cameras on both of these devices, 1080p HD video recording on both. If you want to see the Chrome browser in a test, take a look at the Photon Q 4G LTE review because I did cover it a little bit there. But let's take a look here at the HTC One S, for example. We'll bring it in for comparison here. It's a mobile phone exciting day. Let's get in here with these three devices and then take a picture. And you've got the physical button over here as well, but you don't get the half press to focus option. As soon as you click it, it auto focuses and takes the picture. Over here, no physical button. Wait for it to get its thing on here, focus in. Come on. Let's see what we can do here. I'm not quite sure why it's not focusing. Let's see. It's taking its sweet time. It must have been in some sort of setting. I haven't. Let's, come on. Taking its sweet time. Okay, let's see here. And bring up the settings again. Let's see what we got here. Let's turn off flash. Let's see what we've got here. Scenes, we're going to turn it into a sports scene. And then we're going to keep the effects normal. We're going to keep all this normal. I want to see why it's doing this. And not quite sure. I don't know why it's doing this. It's not focusing in on this actual device. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get it focused in on maybe a T-Mobile logo. Having some issues with the autofocus over here on the Droid 4. Not quite sure. Looks like my settings are fine. I'm not quite sure what's causing this. Mobile count. Let's make sure everything's set. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's causing that, but you know, normally the Droid 4's camera is pretty decent, although that clearly is not a good indicator of the camera on this device. Let's take a look at some pictures I've taken in the past for comparison. There you go, magnetic eraser. You can see the text is relatively easy to read. And here's another good one where you can focus in on Verizon. You can see the logos and more. Not quite sure what's going on there. May just need to be reset or have some sort of power reset. And that may be the issue. But all in all, you know, both of these are good devices. I'll be honest with you, $199. If you need a QWERTY keyboard, this is the best QWERTY keyboard phone on the market by far right now. It's a great device. Love the keyboard on this phone. Great for those people that text and email on a regular basis. That said, it's $200, so it's going right up against the Galaxy S3 and the EVO 4G LTE on Sprint. So it's going to depend on what you want. If specs matter to you, the EVO or the Galaxy S3 are going to be your devices to choose between. If the keyboard is something you've absolutely got to have, you just can't stand typing on a screen, you got to have the physical keyboard because you email 10 billion emails a day, or you text message like a crazy person, or you know, you text messages like crazy, or a crazy person. I don't know. You know, I don't want to judge. Who knows? I would say go with this device. That said, you know, spec-wise, there are some better devices on Sprint. QWERTY-wise, best device in the market right now. Droid 4 over here, on the other hand, $100, a little bit of a cheaper price, 50% cheaper price at that. It's got some great specs. It's still a nice device, and it's been upgraded to Ice Cream Sandwich and has some very similar specs as the PHOTON Q. It's got 4G LTE connectivity. It's got the same battery size. It's got Ice Cream Sandwich as well out of the gate. That said, the winner of the dogfight is the PHOTON Q 4G LTE for a couple of reasons. One, bigger display, faster processor, QWERTY keyboard as well. Combined package, that is. I know this obviously has a physical QWERTY keyboard. And then over here, the design has been updated and the user interface is just a smidge better on the PHOTON Q 4G LTE due to the fact that it rolled out with Ice Cream Sandwich. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage of both of these devices. Let me know what you think. If you've got one or both, you love it, you hate it, physical key, you know, you got some comment, whatever to say, you just want to say hi. You want to talk to me about physical QWERTY keyboards. You thought my physical QWERTY keyboard election video was awesome. I'd love to hear from you. PhoneDog_Aaron on Twitter and on Facebook at facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Hit us up on Facebook as well on the PhoneDog side, facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're going to start a huge giveaway with a bunch of cool devices. Greatest Tech Giveaway Ever 2 is on its way back, my friends. And I'm really excited about it. Hope you are as well. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more dogfights, coverage, and more on the PHOTON Q 4G LTE and the Droid 4 on PhoneDog.com. We'll see you next time.